Channel 4 left 23 people out in the wilderness while they broke bones, lost weight, and filmed all of their breakdowns. But the craziest part is, they didn't even know that the show had been cancelled. Let's get into it. The show was meant to be the next Survivor. They called it Eden. The pitch, 23 people get dropped off in the Scottish Highlands, no phone, no contact, no idea whatsoever what's going on in the real world. They just filmed themselves building a new society. That they did. They hunted, they gathered, they made shelter, they even survived the Scottish winter. And we know how that gets. Someone got injured, someone lost 10 stones. Every breakdown, every infection, every fight, all captured. Well, here's where things go a bit pear-shaped. The show was meant to be going on for a year, but after 4 episodes, people on the outside weren't really feeling it, and the ratings dropped, so Channel 4 pulled the plug, but the producers didn't tell the cast. Contestants stayed in the Scottish Highlands for another 7 months. Malnourished, injured, one man broke a rib, one woman needed medical attention and was told to wait it out because the producers wanted authentic survival. And when they got back, starving, broken, feral, Channel 4 said to them, yeah, about that, mate. No one's been watching. They literally thought they would become TV legends, but really they were just unpaid extras in a show that never aired. Follow if you're done watching passively. We decode the myth, and we don't clap for crumbs. Did you know that the BBC once tricked the entire country into believing that we was watching real people sharing their real life problems, but none of it was true and it was all faked? In '99, they launched one show, The Vanessa Show, daytime TV, massive promo with Vanessa Phelps hosting. They acted like it was all real guests sharing their real life stories, but all the people they had on were actors and every last drop was scripted. Some of them even went on twice, playing different characters, crying on cue and doing the most when it was all just written. And the poor little audience clapped and got all emotional because they thought it was all real. And the BBC knew everything. This wasn't behind their back. And if it wasn't for the mirror exposing them, nothing would have happened. And when the public found out, the BBC just shrugged it off and called it a mistake. It's crazy. They had people tuning in during the day thinking that they're watching real people sharing their lives and trying to have something to relate to, but none of it was true. They made a whole show out of boardroom stories and passed it off as truth, and people believed every last drop. And it makes you think, how far are big corporations and media outlets willing to go for content, and have they really stopped? Follow if you're done watching passively. We decode the myth and we don't clap for crumbs. This woman built her entire career out of pretending to be black. No, it's not Rachel Dolezal. Yes, it's another one. She's a proud Afro-Latina. She weren't even black. My God, weren't even Latina. Let's get into it. Her name was Jessica Crook. She taught African history at St. George University. She spoke with a thick Bronx accent. She wore hoop earrings, head wrap, and told her students she was about that life, organizing and resisting, and no one questioned it. So she started feeling herself and published articles on race and identity, and it went viral. So she done guest lectures, she done conferences, my girl even done a TED Talk, all under the name Jess La Bomalera. Eventually, she got a book deal, an academic one at that, all promoted and funded under the same identity, and still no one thought to check. It wasn't until 2020, out of nowhere, or maybe a bit of lockdown guilt, Jess posted her last essay online, titled The Truth and the Anti-Black Violence of My Lies. It was a full confession. She admitted to being a white Jewish woman from Kansas, like Dorothy. She said sorry for manipulating everyone and that she had made the entire thing up. And then she dipped. No interview, no statement, just radio silence. And she ain't been seen publicly since. But truth be told, ain't nobody trying to look for her anyway. There's been no digging, no investigating, no exposé. Just one woman who told a lie and somehow the entire system believed her. But follow if you're done watching passively, because we decode the myth and we don't clap for crumbs. This man forgot his name, his job, and the fact that he scammed over £60 million, or so he claimed. So it's London 2003, an area with chauffeured cars, champagne lunches, £1 million deals. Them rich people areas. Right in the middle of it, a man with no public profile, yet a portfolio worth tens of millions. Flats in Knightsbridge, offices in the city, yet no one's heard of him. And behind the scenes, something doesn't quite add up.
On paper, he looked untouchable, but then there was this one investigator that noticed the same signature across supposedly separate companies, fake directors, fake clients, fake paperwork, and over £60 million borrowed using smoke and mirrors. A tip led them to a flat in Monaco, and bam, they caught him, arrested him, and flew him back to London. That's when things got real interesting. And the real question is, did he get away with it? You see, when the court day arrived, he didn't deny the crime. He denied knowing anything at all. When the judge asked him, "What's your name?" he said, "I can't remember." He couldn't remember the company. He couldn't remember what fraud was. Complete amnesia. Doctors were split. Some believed him, others thought it was the best performance they had ever seen. But the persecutors kept digging. Emails, phone logs, and that flat in Monaco, still under his name. That led them to older properties, which uncovered a paper trail going years back and then finally revealed that he had changed his name to hide from fraud convictions. And the moment they realized he had two identities, everything he said about amnesia went completely out the window. He got 11 years, served half, released, and the courts are still chasing him for that money. His name, Achilles Kalakis, a man who built an empire of lies and tried to vanish beneath amnesia. Follow if you're done watching passively. We decode the myth, and we don't clap for crumbs. One woman faked winning the lottery live on the BBC. She claimed the prize, gave interviews, and she never even bought a ticket. Let's get into it. The show, National Lottery Jet Set. BBC Saturday night, live audience, glitzy stage, popping champagne, big checks, camera crews, the works. The contestants played for a luxury holiday, but the prize wasn't just a trip, it was a fame. You were seen, you were celebrated. We're talking National Lottery live on TV. Except this one particular contestant wasn't meant to be there. She had no ticket, no entry form, no official clearance, just a plan and enough confidence to pull it off. She walked right into the venue, beeline straight past security and stood right by the stage. And when the winner was announced, my girl stepped forward all smiling, hugged the host, accepting flowers, posed with the check, and no one even noticed. So the BBC were none the wiser, so they aired the episode and she took full advantage. She gave interviews, she told the press where she was going, she told them what she packed in her house, and they even filmed her going away in a limo. She was never vetted, she never passed registration, she didn't even enter the draw. It wasn't until days later that someone even realized anything. And by then, my girl was all in the papers. BBC had to scramble. They had to reissue a statement, pull the episode, and quietly re-record it with the actual winner, and just hope that the scandal would just disappear. And as we know, a good scandal ain't going nowhere. The tabloids ran with it, and it ended up exposing the cracks, not just in the show, but in the whole system behind it. So follow if you're done watching passively. We decode the myth, and we don't clap for crumbs. This man convinced the bank that he could double their money using black magic. They gave him $242 million, and then he vanished. Let's get into it. His name was Fotanga Babani Sissoko, and in the 1990s, he pulled off the wildest bank heist in history. No mask, no gun, no violence, just a spellbinding lie. So this man walked into Dubai Islamic Bank wearing one white furry robe and bare gold and said to the manager, "Listen, I'm a wealthy businessman and a sorcerer." Yes, he said he's gonna Harry Potter up the ting. He said that he could double up any amount that they give him using jinn, spirits from the African and Islamic folklore. And all he will need is a bit of cash and some privacy. And somehow they gave it to him. So they gave him 10 mil. And then another, and then another. And then in 3 years, they gave him $242 million. No paperwork, no collateral, just belief in the unseen. Oh, he's a real G. After some heavy spending, Interpol eventually caught up with him in Geneva, but even then he negotiated a deal, got released and returned to Mali, untouched. And then the good old BBC got involved. They gave him an interview, but that only made him bigger back home. People thought of him as more powerful now. He's the guy that got away with 242 mil. His sorcery must be real. The media didn't expose him, they elevated him. The bank collapsed, the manager got prison, and Sissoko, he lived out his days as a king, all because he convinced the world that magic was money. Follow if you're done watching passively. We decode the myth. and we don't clap for crumbs. A woman calls into a live TV show to say her husband's cheating. He's sitting right beside her, and someone watching hears something that they shouldn't. It's midweek 1995, late night ITV, the Paul Rush show. The topic of the night, cheaters. They're taking in live calls from the viewers, and people are basically calling in to let them know what they've been through. And then this woman calls in. She says her husband's cheating on her, and he's sitting right beside her not saying a thing. Paul starts asking her questions. She answers them all steady. The room is still and it feels quite heavy. You can tell that people are like proper locked in. But then someone watching picked up on something. It wasn't what she said, it was the sound. There was an echo. Not like the type you hear from a phone call, more like the type you hear when someone's in the same space as the microphone, like she wasn't calling in, like she was already there. That viewer picked up the phone and called the station and told them straight, I can hear her voice in the background. She's not on the line, she's in the studio. And they were right. It was a producer in the back reading off a script, and everything the audience thought was going on was really just being puppeteered. And it almost worked if it wasn't for that echo. The show didn't last long after that. They tried not to talk about it, but people remembered. Follow if you're done watching passively. We decode the myth, and we don't clap for crumbs. This woman made millions claiming that she escaped the Holocaust on foot with wolves as a child, and everyone believed her. Let's get into it. So my girl says she was 7 when the Nazis took her parents from her. She wandered across Europe alone, eating scraps, sleeping in barns. She literally walked thousands of miles barefoot until one day she bucked up with a pack of wolves. They didn't eat her, they raised her like this was European Jungle Book. Of course she survived, and then decades later, she wrote a book, Misha, the memoirs of the Holocaust years, and it sold bare. Movie rights, international book tours. She had school kids crying in assembly halls. And of course, it's like the real life Mowgli. Until one journalist realized, no deportation records, no camp, no Jewish lineage, just a Catholic girl from one quiet little town in Belgium who spent the years of war in a classroom, no forest, no death march, a school. And that's not even the worst part. So when my girl got discovered, she didn't even flinch. She said, it's not true reality, but it's my reality. So when Stella put in a book, Hollywood gave her a movie deal. They called it Surviving with Wolves. It won awards. It gets played in classrooms. They turned her lie into a legacy and people clapped for it. But follow if you're done watching passively, because we decode the myth and we don't clap for crumbs. CBS dropped 40 children in the middle of the desert. No parents, no real supervision, and called it television. Let's talk about it. They called the show Kid Nation. They got kids aged 8 to 15, dropped them off in one ghost town in New Mexico. No adults, no contact, no help, just cameras. CBS wanted them to build a society from scratch. They had to make their own food, make their own laws, basically fix everything we adults got wrong. And people tuned in. You had 8-year-olds bawling whilst doing the dishes, 10-year-olds cooking pasta on an open fire, and you had 12-year-olds running the whole time. But when the cameras were off, one kid drank bleach, another one burnt in the face with hot grease, another one popped out a shoulder, and no medic on site. And you know what CBS said? People, this is not a workplace. This is an experience. They made the kids sign a waiver, and that's how they got away with child labor laws. And when the parents tried to pull them out, producers had more to say. Wait, you'll ruin the narrative. They wanted Lords of the Flies with ad breaks, but they got lawsuits instead. They didn't create a town, they created a breakdown and tried to pass it off as entertainment. But follow if you're done watching passively. We decode the myth, and we don't clap for crumbs. This woman claims she cured her terminal brain cancer with food. Got a book deal. Apple featured her on their wellness app, and she didn't even have cancer in the first place. Let's get into it. Her name was Mel Gibson. She built an entire empire of lies, and the wellness world just ate that all up. She said she had terminal brain cancer, and the doctors only gave her 5 months to live. But instead of chemo, she managed to heal herself with a mixture of clean eating, natural remedies, and spirituality. She shared her story on Instagram, launched an app called The Whole Pantry, and followers just ended up believing her, and so did the brands. At this point, Apple got a bit excited. They featured her as a wellness partner, and they even lined her up to be a part of the Apple Watch launch with her app pre-installed. At this point, the journalists started to do their job, and they started to dig a little bit and was like, wait a second, her medical records aren't adding up here. And why is my girl switching her story so much? Until she finally admitted it, that she made the whole thing up. That's right, Mel Gibson never had cancer. No brain cancer, no cancer at all, nothing. And the backlash was brutal. The app got pulled, right? And the book got recalled, right again. And in 2017, she was fined with a whopping $400,000 for her deception. She then vanished from public life, but the damage stuck around because in a world where likes equal legacy, Bell just proved that all you need is a story, even if it's a lie. So follow if you're done watching passively, because we decode the myth and we don't clap for crumbs. The BBC aired a ghost hunt. A man was unalived and the show never broadcasted again. Let's get into this one. Halloween night in 1992, the BBC presented Ghost Watch, a live paranormal investigation hosted by familiar and respected faces like Michael Parkinson and Sarah Green. It looked like a serious documentary, it sounded like the truth, and it terrified the nation. The cameras followed Green into a haunted council house in North London. Good luck, North London. Whispers, creaks, cold spots, and a sinister entity called Pipes. Viewers were hooked, but here's the thing, none of it was real. The entire thing was pre-recorded. The ghosts played by an actor, the possessions scripted, and the BBC didn't exactly advertise that part. They kind of leaned into the realism hard. And what happened next? Mass panic. Over 30,000 people phoned in the BBC that night. Some people thought the ghost was coming through their TV. I guess the ring had to start from somewhere. One boy reportedly developed PTSD from it. The Guardian covered it, and so did Parliament. And then things got a bit darker. A few weeks later, a man sadly took his own life. In a note he left behind, he said that Ghostwatch had unleashed something evil into his home. The show opened up a door and never closed it. The BBC pulled the broadcast and banned reruns for a decade and never aired anything like it again. And as for Ghostwatch, that faded into cult legend. But ask anyone who watched it live, they'll tell you, it didn't feel like fiction. It felt like that night.
News turned into a nightmare.
Follow if you're done watching passively. We decode the myth and we don't clap for crumbs. A family faked their kid floating away in a UFO and the news covered it for hours. The National Guard got involved. And just wait until you find out where the kid actually was. Let's get into it. The year was 2009. A shiny saucer-shaped balloon launched into the sky over Colorado. The parents called 911 and said their 6-year-old son was inside. Then live news kicked in. Helicopters scrambled, airports shut down. CNN went full coverage. Fox News even used missile tracking radar. It was a national panic, live on TV. The balloon was floating for over an hour, and then when it finally came down, it was empty. But everyone just thought, oh, this boy must have just fallen out mid-air. So the rescue team went mad searching all fields and all sorts. The country just held its breath. And then a few hours later, they found it. Not in a balloon, not in any danger, in the attic, safe and unharmed. But that's not it. The real twist came during the live CNN interview where they asked the boy why he didn't come out when people were calling his name. He looked at the dad and said, actually, I'm gonna let you hear what he said.
You guys said that we did this for the show.
Yep, just for the show. Turns out the dad really just wanted a reality show deal, so they coached the kid, poorly, and the balloon stunt, just marketing. The parents were charged with filing a false report, and they both pled guilty, and the boy later on said that he didn't even know what real was anymore. All of that airtime, all of that chaos, just for a TV pilot. Follow if you're done watching passively. We decode the myth, and we don't clap for crumbs. The internet fought to save this Syrian lesbian from prison, but the truth was way more twisted than anyone could have expected. Let's get into this one. It's 2011, and the Arab Spring is exploding across North Africa and the Middle East. Riots, protests, governments falling, and during the chaos, a blog called A Girl in Damascus was making waves. Raw, emotional posts from a Syrian lesbian activist who was risking her life to speak out. She talks about checkpoints, about her father saving her from arrests, about being queer in a dictatorship and surviving it. Western media start quoting her and she goes viral until one day the blog says that she got kidnapped. The internet starts to panic. Hashtag Free Amina starts to trend, but something was off. An activist in Syria says, I've never met her. Actually, no one has. And that photo that you're using, that's not her. Turns out there was no Amina Abdullah. In fact, it was written by Tom McMaster, ironic surname, a straight, white, married, American man. He faked the blog, faked the identity, used somebody else's photo, and even made up the kidnapping. He said he wanted to amplify a voice, except it wasn't his voice to play with. Real queer Syrians were being tortured while he was online role-playing one for internet fame. This wasn't just catfishing, this was queer trauma turned into fan fiction, and the world just lapped it up. But follow if you're done watching passively, we decode the myth, and we don't clap for crumbs.